Nia Ediwale had always dreamed big, but she never imagined that her future would initially revolve around propping up someone else's aspirations. Raised in a lively working-class neighborhood, she learned early on how to move beyond adversity. By the time she was 18, her notebooks were bursting with entrepreneurial ideas, an eclectic cafe concept, a small clothing line, and even a day spa that specialized in all-natural treatments. Yet she shelved those ambitions the moment she encountered Malik. Their first meeting happened at a crowded talent showcase held in a poly-lit community hall that reeked of soda and stale popcorn. Malik's voice soared above the other acts, pulling Nia's attention toward the makeshift stage. His guitar chords were raw, his lyrics even rawer, but he sang with a depth that made her heart flutter. Afterward, he greeted her near a corner where she stood clapping, and their conversation flowed so smoothly that she almost forgot they'd just met. In the weeks that followed, Nia found herself more captivated by Malik's determination than by her own aspirations. She started feeling that his goal, becoming a famous musician, was somehow the key to both of their destinies. He spoke passionately about uplifting communities through music, and she responded with her own visions of building cafes and helping local businesses thrive. At first, they treated these late-night talks as equal exchanges of ideas. But it became clear that Malik's dream was far more urgent. He was desperate for his big break, working back-to-back shifts at a gas station, then rushing to record songs in a tiny rented studio with battered equipment. Nia quickly slid into the role of the supportive partner. She held down multiple jobs when finances got tight, paid rent on a cramped apartment that they dubbed the Launchpad, and even sat in on his recording sessions, often nodding off to the hum of electric guitars. "You're my motivation," Malik said one late evening, his fingers still dancing over guitar strings. "I'd probably have quit by now if it weren't for you cheering me on." Nia's heart melted. She genuinely believed in him. When she scribbled her own ideas in a notepad, sketches for a little cafe by the waterfront, a plan for a skincare line, she always reminded herself that these dreams could wait. Malik, in her eyes, had a once-in-a-lifetime talent. The synergy she felt with him was so intense that she was convinced she'd see her own plans come to fruition once his success was established. Still, an undercurrent of tension appeared whenever she hinted at focusing on her own future. One night, she excitedly mentioned a new recipe she'd developed for sweet puff-puff that she hoped to sell at local markets. He barely glanced up. "That's nice," he mumbled, scrolling through his phone to check potential gig listings. "But let's not get sidetracked. Once I hit it big, we'll have all the time and resources for fun ideas like that." His dismissive tone stung, but Nia nodded. Supporting him had become her main priority. She told herself that soon, both of them would be living their best lives, his music out there for the world to enjoy, and her entrepreneurial dreams rekindled in the aftermath of his success. After a year of small wins, open MIC nights, minor collaborations, Malik started attracting local buzz. Producers would occasionally call, praising his voice and stage presence. He usually came home beaming, thrilled that he was inching closer to stardom. Nia celebrated each small achievement by cooking his favorite meals and listening, starry-eyed, as he recounted every detail. But then, almost imperceptibly, he began changing. He fielded private phone calls behind closed doors and scrolled through social media while ignoring her. One evening, Nia found him packing a sleek new outfit into a garment bag. "Where are you off to?" she asked. He hesitated. "Some fancy industry mixer. A producer told me to show up. Tanya, the influencer, will be there, along with a few label people." Nia forced a smile. "Do you want me to come?" He shrugged, not meeting her gaze. "It might be a tough crowd. It's probably better I go solo." Stung, she returned to the kitchen. She recalled how, only months earlier, they planned to attend every event together. She'd be his unwavering support, his anchor in a sea of unfamiliar faces. Now she felt more like a stranger in her own home. In small but agonizing ways, Malik was shutting her out. When she tried asking about the label executives or how the meeting went, he'd offer bland generalities. "It was fine," or "they had me talk about my image." She also noticed that he'd become unusually guarded about finances. While Nia once handled everything from rent to groceries, he now insisted on paying for some things himself. She didn't mind the shift in responsibility, but she worried that his secrecy hinted at bigger decisions he wasn't sharing. If she pressed for more details, like who was covering his studio fees, He'd brush off the question or claim he didn't want to jinx future deals. One particularly heated argument erupted on a Friday night. Malik came home well past midnight, reeking of cologne and champagne. "Who'd you meet this time?" she asked, arms crossed. He rolled his eyes. "Producers. Managers. Does it matter?" "It does to me. I'm your wife, Malik. I've been scrimping and saving to help fund these sessions. It'd be nice to know what's happening." His temper flared. "I never asked you to break your back for me. I appreciate the support, but you're suffocating me with all these questions." Nia gaped at him, tears stinging her eyes. "I'm just trying to keep up with your life, which is speeding away without me." He grabbed his guitar and retreated to the bedroom, muttering something about how no one understands the pressure he was under. Nia stared at the closed door, feeling an ache in her chest. She realized that everything she'd invested, money, time, dreams, hadn't earned her a seat at the table where he now feasted on new opportunities. Weeks later, Malik got nominated for a coveted Emerging Artist Award. Though modest by national standards, it was a significant leap in his budding career. Nia felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this achievement would remind him of how far they'd come together. She carefully selected a dress from a discount store, excited to show up and surprise him with her unwavering support. When she arrived, bright lights assaulted her eyes as she stepped onto the small red carpet area. Photographers clamored for shots of the nominees. She spotted Malik standing a few meters away, dressed sharply in a tailored suit, with a radiant woman on his arm, Tanya, the influencer. They posed for pictures, Tanya's hand perched possessively on his shoulder. A journalist asked, "Malik, you look great tonight. Who's this lovely lady?" Tanya flashed a blinding smile. Malik turned toward the cameras. "This is Tanya. We've been working together a lot. She's an incredible influencer who believes in my music." The journalist pressed on. "So are you officially off the market, Malik?" He laughed, a sound that made Nia's stomach coil in knots. "Yes, I'm single but staying open to possibilities." Nia felt her face flush. Her feet felt glued to the carpet, emotions swailing. Single. Could he really stand there, ignoring the fact he was married, or at least had been until very recently? Her eyes brimmed with tears, but she forced herself to step back before anyone recognized her. She ducked behind the throng of attendees and made her way outside. She hailed a taxi, tears finally streaming down her cheeks. All this time, she believed he was momentarily lost in the madness of rising fame. But seeing him dismiss her so publicly felt like someone had driven a stake through her chest. She got home and waited anxiously, hoping for some explanation or at least an apology when he returned. He never showed up that night. The next afternoon, she woke to find most of Malik's belongings gone. A terse note on the kitchen counter read, "I need space. I'm sorry." That was it. No real goodbye. No reasons given, just the final proof that he was leaving her behind in his quest for stardom. In the days that followed, Nia fell into a haze of disbelief. She'd invested everything, her money, her dreams, her heart, only for him to vanish without a backward glance. She discovered he'd siphoned off what remained in their joint savings account, leaving her with mounting bills. The rent was overdue, and eviction notices littered the mailbox. She could barely afford groceries, let alone any next steps for her life. Friends who knew tried to console her. "He's a fool," they'd say. "He'll regret it soon." But their words did little to mask the gaping hole in her existence. Nights were the worst. She would slip into the bed they once shared, only to be suffocated by the emptiness on the other side. Tears became her constant companion, soaking her pillow as she wondered where she went wrong. Still, she pushed herself to keep working, picking up extra shifts wherever possible, scrubbing office floors, waitressing at a 24-hour diner, anything that could stave off financial ruin. Coworkers exchanged sympathetic glances, having heard bits of her story. Some gently asked questions about Malik, but she deflected. She didn't have the emotional bandwidth to discuss her collapse. One evening, while sifting through old boxes in search of items she could sell, her gaze fell on a worn leather-bound notebook that triggered memories of a life before Malik. The edges were tattered, the pages yellowed. She hugged it close, recalling the teenage version of herself who believed wholeheartedly in her own potential. There was a time she didn't define herself by her relationship with a musician on the rise. In her darkest moments, she almost hurled it away. But something stopped her. With trembling hands, She opened it. What she found were the seeds of lost ambitions, handwritten ideas about a skincare line, outlines for small startup ventures, whimsical cafe sketches. They were remnants of a life she'd put on hold. Leafing through each page, she felt an inexplicable surge of recognition. It was as if a tiny voice whispered, "Remember who you were before this heartbreak." Nia spent hours poring over the notebook that night, lying on the worn couch in her empty apartment. Each page told a story of possibility. A younger Nia scribbling brand ideas, potential company names, marketing angles, even half-finished business plans. Some were borderline absurd, others promising. Shea butter skincare had come up often, likely due to her fascination with natural beauty rituals passed down from her grandmother. The margin notes included potential ingredient lists, unrefined shea butter from local markets, essential oils like lavender or lemongrass, environmentally friendly packaging. She'd even jotted down approximate costs for raw materials, possible retail prices, and broad ideas for how to appeal to a demographic seeking organic products. Her heart hammered as she realized she had once possessed a clear vision for how to shape her future. Why had she dropped these passions so easily? She knew the answer. She latched onto Malik's dream, believing his stardom would grant her the freedom to explore hers. But with him gone, she faced a stark choice: sink into despair or fight for her own vision. Setting the notebook aside, Nia breathed deeply, determined not to let hopelessness consume her. She was low on money and self-esteem, but what if this battered journal was a ticket out of despair? She'd lost so much, yet the seeds of her entrepreneurial spark remained. She whispered to the darkness of the living room, "I have to try." The next morning, she took a grim look at her finances. With only $200 left after paying part of the rent, she had to make a move, any move. Recalling her old notes about small-scale production, she decided to test a homemade skincare product using unrefined shea butter. She rummaged around for enough change to buy basic materials, a few pounds of shea butter, small plastic containers, and simple labels. She commandeered her tiny kitchen, melting the butter in a double boiler and carefully blending it with lavender oil. Nervous energy coursed through her as she stirred the concoction, her free hand trembling. She tried to steady her heart by remembering her grandmother's voice. "Nature has a way of healing. Use it well." The final whipped cream smelled heavenly, a soft floral scent that calmed her. She labeled each container by hand, writing Nia's naturals in neat cursive. The next day, she managed to rent a small table at a local community fair. She displayed her modest offerings, barely 20 jars, on a checkered cloth, with a handmade sign reading "All Natural Shea Butter." Foot traffic was slow. Occasionally, people stopped by, sampling the cream on the back of their hands. A few asked about the price, but most just moved on. By midday, she'd only sold 3 jars. Discouragement washed over her. She wondered if she was destined to fail at everything. Then a middle-aged woman approached, drawn by the lavender scent. She asked about the story behind the product. Nia hesitated but decided on honesty. She described losing herself in someone else's dreams, only to rediscover her own ideas in an old notebook. The woman listened intently, then smiled. "I'll take 2, she said, pressing cash into Nia's hand. "I admire your determination." As the day ended, she'd sold 10 jars, enough to earn a small profit. It wasn't a fortune, but it was a lifeline, a glimpse of possibility. On the taxi ride home, she carefully clutched her earnings. For the first time in months, she felt a flicker of pride not tethered to Malik's ambition. She was taking steps, however modest, to stand on her own. Word of mouth was slow, but she gained a tiny following. A few fair attendees posted about Nia's naturals on social media, praising the cream's texture and calming lavender aroma. Her phone chimed occasionally with direct messages inquiring about orders. Encouraged, she explored local business forums, looking for ways to expand her reach. That was when she stumbled upon the Women's Co-op, a community-driven initiative that met weekly in the basement of a youth center. Founded by local female entrepreneurs, it functioned as a space to share resources, trade skills, and offer moral support. Nia gathered her courage and joined one Wednesday evening, arriving to find a dozen women seated in a circle. The group's leader, Esther, exuded warmth. "Everyone, this is Nia," she introduced, gesturing for Nia to take an empty seat. "She's starting a natural skincare line. Let's give her a round of applause for taking that leap." Applause erupted, and Nia felt tears threatening. She wasn't used to such immediate acceptance. During the meeting, she heard stories from other women running everything from catering services to hair salons. Some struggled with funding, others wrestled with marketing. Yet they bonded over a shared belief that women could succeed when they pooled knowledge and cheered one another on. When it was Nia's turn to speak, she offered a condensed version of her recent heartbreak. A hush fell, the others nodding sympathetically. She mentioned how she found strength in her old notebook. Afterward, several approached to encourage her. One, named Adana, told her, "Don't let that heartbreak define your hustle, girl. You've got this." Before Nia left, Esther pulled her aside. "You have talent and passion," she said. "But passion needs structure. We can guide you toward microloans, marketing strategies, and more. Keep coming back. We'll help you build something solid." In that moment, Nia realized she was no longer alone. She had found her tribe, a collective of women who believed in collective progress. She clutched the phone numbers they'd given her, heart brimming with cautious optimism. If Malik had taught her how to sacrifice, perhaps this group would teach her how to thrive. Buoyed by the co-op support, Nia tried her hand at e-commerce. She hastily set up a basic website using a free template, snapped makeshift photos of her products on a neutral background, and wrote earnest descriptions. Handcrafted shea butter, infused with lavender for ultimate relaxation. Once she launched, she spent days refreshing the page, waiting for orders. None came. Weeks passed with only a handful of visits, mostly from co-op friends checking out her site. Dejected, she wondered if her initial wins were flukes. Late at night, she pored over budget spreadsheets, struggling to justify paying rent on an apartment filled with half-finished inventory. She tried influencer outreach, emailing a few popular Instagram accounts, but received no reply. Just when she was ready to pull the plug, a random twist of fate occurred. A college student discovered her brand at a weekend market and posted a fun TikTok video showcasing local treasures, featuring Nia's cream as a must-have. The video blew up in a matter of days. Suddenly, hundreds of curious browsers flooded her website. She woke one morning to find a backlog of 30 new orders. By that afternoon, it ballooned to 100. She scrambled to fulfill everything, enlisting a friend's kitchen to handle production overflow. She purchased bubble mailers in bulk, printed shipping labels at a local print shop, and spent sleepless nights packaging jar after jar. Each label affixed felt like a tangible token of her rebirth. Adana visited to help pack orders. Between sealing boxes, she teased Nia. "Fame found you too, girl, just not in the way you expected." Nia laughed, shaking her head in disbelief. "I'm just grateful. I never thought a random college student's TikTok could resurrect my online store." That single viral clip forced her to refine her process. She established clearer business policies, improved her product photos, and used social media more strategically. Though she battled missed deliveries and shipping delays, the praise from satisfied customers kept her going. Their Instagram posts, showing off glowing skin, became free advertising. Her tiny brand, forged in heartbreak, was finding momentum. As orders flowed in, Nia attended more in-person events, investing in a modest upgrade to her booth setup, neatly printed banners, well-designed flyers, and samples that drew crowds with their fragrant appeal. She also rebranded the packaging, moving from flimsy plastic jars to sturdy, eco-friendly containers. The changes were risky, draining her bank account, but she trusted her gut that quality would elevate Nia's naturals. It worked. A local boutique owner noticed her at a market and asked if she'd supply a small batch for their store shelves. She nearly burst with excitement, picturing her products displayed among trendy artisanal goods. When she visited the shop days later, she felt a thrill at the sight of her new packaging perched under warm lights, a hand-lettered sign reading, "Local and Organic Beauty, Nia's Naturals." Meanwhile, the co-op provided steady moral and practical support. Esther helped her create a basic financial plan, ensuring she set aside a portion of each sale for future investments. Adana introduced her to a friend who specialized in digital marketing, giving Nia insights into how to leverage Instagram and Facebook ads more effectively. The synergy was palpable. She no longer felt like a lone warrior battling the world. Her living room morphed into a mini warehouse, boxes stacked so high that guests had to navigate a maze. Though exhausted, she was determined. Sometimes she missed the simplicity of the old days, but then she'd recall the note Malik left. She'd remember how she felt worthless. Now, with every jar she sold, she proved, to herself more than anyone, that she possessed the tenacity to stand tall on her own. In the midst of her whirlwind, an unexpected phone call jolted her. The number was painfully familiar, Malik's. Her hands shook as she stared at the screen. Part of her wanted to ignore it, but curiosity nagged until she answered. Nia. His voice was softer than she remembered. I've been hearing your name everywhere. Your brand's blowing up. She swallowed hard. What do you want? He sighed on the other end. I don't blame you for being angry. I wanted to congratulate you. And I wanted to say I'm sorry. The sincerity in his tone unsettled her. She tightened her grip on the phone. Sorry for what, exactly? Leaving me broke? Lying about your relationship status on the red carpet? A long pause. All of it. I was blinded by the industry. The people I thought were friends turned out to be users. 10 years off with someone else now, and the label dropped me when I couldn't replicate the hype. Nia felt a swirl of pity and anger. Memories of sobbing on the kitchen floor came flooding back. That's not really my problem anymore. I know, Malik answered, voice cracking. If there's any chance to talk in person, I'd be grateful. She hesitated. The old part of her wanted closure, but the new Nia bristled at the idea of letting him know. Before she could overthink, she ended the call. Throughout that day, her mind replayed the conversation. She told herself she didn't owe him anything, yet some tiny corner of her heart ached, remembering the man she once adored. Business soared, and soon new opportunities arose. One evening, after a networking event, a sleek-suited investor named Jay approached her. He offered a polished business card embossed with gold lettering. I've been watching Nia's Naturals, he said smoothly. Your brand has a compelling backstory, and the product is excellent. I'd love to invest. Her heart raced at the possibility. She dreamt of a real cash infusion to scale operations. Over cappuccinos the next morning, Ajay outlined a plan, massive capital to ramp up production, a dedicated marketing team, and distribution in national retail chains. It's everything I've wanted, Nia admitted. I just don't want to lose the personal touch. My brand is about uplifting women who feel overlooked, not just making a profit. Ajay smiled with well-practiced charm. Of course, that authenticity is precisely why customers love you. However, for an investment of this size, we'd need a controlling interest to make decisions swiftly. Her heart sank. Controlling interest. This is my company. My story. He leaned forward, voice low. I understand it's hard to let go, but trust me, with my team, you'll become a household name. That night, Nia pored over the contract. It dangled the promise of rapid growth but threatened her autonomy. She recalled how easily she surrendered her dreams for Malik's sake. Was she about to sign away her brand for money? At 2 a.m., she put the papers aside, unsettled by the notion of losing creative control again. Exhausted by the weight of the decision, she phoned Esther. They met at a quiet cafe, where the co-op leader listened intently to Nia's concerns. Controlling stake. Esther echoed, frowning. That's risky. Investors can pivot your branding, alter your products, or even cut corners to save costs. You might end up a figurehead. Nia sipped her tea, a lump forming in her throat. But it's so much money. I could expand faster, maybe even open my own store. Esther patted her hand. Yes, but at what cost? Think about who you become if you lose command of your own narrative. That night, Nia recalled how complacent she was in Malik's dream. Now she stood at a similar crossroads, relinquish power in exchange for financial security or soldier on with her own strategies. Though terrified, she emailed Ajay, politely rejecting his offer. I respect your vision, she wrote, but I need to retain leadership to stay true to what I'm building. Ajay responded curtly, warning she might be turning down her best shot at success. Still, she felt a sense of relief. This time, she'd choose herself. She couldn't ignore the ghosts of her past, but she could forge a new pattern, one where she didn't vanish into someone else's grand scheme. Turning down Ajay's deal motivated her to push forward independently. She secured a small microloan, expanded her workspace from her living room into a rented studio, and hired 2 part-time helpers, Sade and Ife. Both were young, eager women looking for their start. Training them felt surreal. Nia was suddenly a mentor instead of a mere hustle on the verge of collapse. When Glow & Company, a growing retail chain, agreed to stock her products in a handful of stores, excitement surged through her team. On launch day, the store set up an elegant display featuring Nia's naturals. Customers milled around, sampling testers and reading about her brand's origins in heartbreak and determination. The name Nia's Naturals glinted from polished signage, capturing the attention of passers-by. A store representative invited Nia to speak at a small in-store event. Nervous but determined, she stood beside her products and recounted her story, how she discovered old journal notes at her lowest point and found the courage to build something authentic. Applause and camera flashes followed. For a moment, she felt unstoppable. Glancing around, she recognized how the tide had turned. She was no longer the woman overshadowed by Malik's quest. She was the entrepreneur front and center, forging a narrative of triumph. Esther Adana and her co-op sisters watched with teary pride, while new customers lined up to buy jars of whipped shea butter. Every purchase symbolized a personal victory. After the event, a local blogger approached. "People love a good rise from the ashes story," she said. "Mind if we do an interview?" Nia smiled, nodding. "I'd love to. I just hope it helps anyone feeling stuck to realize they're stronger than they think." Flush from the successful launch, Nia invited her closest friends to a casual after-party at a cozy lounge. They chatted excitedly about business prospects, nibbling on small bites while music pulsed in the background. Amid the glow of warm lamps, someone tapped her shoulder. She turned to see Malik. She froze, heart pounding. He looked nervous, fiddling with his jacket zipper. "Heard about your event," he said. I wanted to show up and congratulate you." Her co-op sisters watched from nearby, their faces reflecting equal parts concern and curiosity. Nia drew Malik aside, arms folded. "Why are you really here?" He lowered his gaze. "Everything's crashed for me. My label's gone. Gigs dried up. And seeing you succeed, it reminded me of what I lost." A wave of anger washed over her. "You lost more than a support system. You lost the person who sacrificed her own dreams for you." He nodded, eyes brimming with regret. "I know. I was selfish. It kills me to see the distance I put between us." She inhaled sharply. "I'm glad you're acknowledging that, but you can't waltz back in as if nothing happened." He swallowed hard. "I'm not asking for everything at once. Just, can we talk?" It took all her willpower not to break down. She recalled the lonely nights, the tears, the eviction threats. But she also remembered the early days when they believed in each other without reservation. The contradictory flood of emotions nearly overwhelmed her. "You should leave," she said quietly. "I'm here to celebrate with people who've actually been there for me." Malik's shoulders sagged. Without protest, he slipped out. Friends circled around Nia, checking if she was all right. She forced a reassuring smile, though her heart raced. Even as she tried to savor her triumph, she couldn't ignore how his presence stirred memories she tried so hard to bury. Over the next few weeks, Malik persisted. He called, texted, even showed up at her workshop with flowers. Sometimes she ignored him outright. Other times, she allowed short, tense conversations. During one such chat, he said, "I've spent days replaying everything in my head. I know I was awful, but I'm trying to make amends." She wasn't sure how to respond. You can't rewrite history. What's done is done. "True," he replied softly, "but maybe you could give me a chance to show I've changed." She hated the kernel of sympathy that tugged at her. She'd once loved him with a fierceness she didn't know was possible. Even after his betrayal, that love didn't vanish overnight. But she was no longer the same person who bent her entire existence around him. One night, she confided in Adana and Esther, who listened patiently. "Am I crazy to feel even a shred of forgiveness?" Nia asked, eyes puffy from crying. Esther shook her head. "Forgiveness isn't crazy. It can be freeing. But trusting him again is another question. You've built a life without him. Don't let pity or nostalgia steer you back into old patterns." Nia nodded, grateful for their clarity. She resolved to tread carefully, balancing her desire for closure with her instinct to protect everything she'd worked for. If Malik had truly transformed, he'd have to show it through actions, not just words. A new wave of attention hit her. Malik decided to address their situation publicly. On a popular morning radio show, he admitted to leaving her in pursuit of superficial fame. Clips from the interview went viral, with headlines like "Rising Musician Expresses Regret." Listening to snippets online, Nia heard Malik's voice crack with emotion. "Nia gave everything for me," he said. "I was too blind to see what I had." Friends bombarded her with links and messages. "Have you heard? He's apologizing everywhere." Some told her to forgive him, while others warned it was just another performance. Each ping on her phone felt like a fresh jolt to her system. The following week, a tabloid approached her for a rebuttal. She politely declined. She wasn't interested in fueling a public spectacle. However, her followers inundated her social media, begging for her perspective. Finally, one evening, she went live on Instagram, eyes resolute. Thousands joined within minutes, curious to hear her side. "I never intended to air my personal life," she began. "But I need to speak for myself. Yes, Malik and I were married. Yes, he left me when I was most vulnerable. But that's not the story I want to highlight now. The real story is about rediscovering who I was outside that relationship." Her voice trembled as she admitted the heartbreak, the near eviction, the day she found her old notebook. "Everyone's asking if I'll forgive him. Maybe I will, in time. But forgiveness doesn't mean I forget what I went through. Nor does it mean I let him walk back into my life as if nothing happened." Comments flooded in, many praising her transparency. When she ended the live stream, she felt a heavy burden lift. The truth was out. She no longer had to hide behind carefully worded statements or second-guess how her story would be interpreted. She had reclaimed her voice. The aftermath of her live stream was overwhelming. She received thousands of supportive messages, but also encountered critics who accused her of being vindictive or stoking drama for publicity. She tried to stay focused on her business and philanthropic plans. She wasn't about to let outsiders dictate how she handled her personal life. Ironically, the drama boosted her brand's visibility. Sales spiked as new customers discovered the woman behind Nia's Naturals. In interviews, she redirected attention from Malik's apology to her mission. "I hope my products remind people to honor their worth," she told a local newspaper. "Sometimes, life breaks us so we can see our own power more clearly." A few unscrupulous tabloids tried to paint her as heartless for not rushing to Malik's side. She ignored them, focusing on the positive. The co-op stood firmly behind her, and Adana jokingly said, "Let the tabloids talk. Their chatter is free marketing." Still, every so often, Nia's phone would buzz with Malik's name. Occasionally, she'd answer, listening quietly as he recounted how lonely he felt, how the industry's glitz had evaporated once he was no longer a hot commodity. She heard genuine regret in his voice but remained cautious, telling herself it was enough that she was forging her own path. With her newfound momentum, Nia decided to pay her blessings forward. She established a small mentorship fund dedicated to helping women start or scale their businesses. Using a portion of her profits, she launched Rise Together, partnering with the co-op to identify applicants who showed potential but lacked resources. The program offered seed money, workshops on entrepreneurship, and networking events. On launch day, the community center buzzed with activity. Nia felt a surge of pride as she spoke to the first group of participants, women with bright ideas ranging from baked goods to handmade fashion. She saw in them the same fire she once harbored, a desire to carve out space for themselves. "This fund isn't about charity," she said, standing in front of a modest banner. "It's about collaboration. We'll grow together by sharing knowledge, markets, and lessons learned." Participants broke into applause. Some approached afterward to share personal struggles, families who doubted them, spouses who scoffed at their hobbies. Nia nodded, offering encouragement drawn from her own scars. After the event, Adana grinned from A to A. "Your heartbreak bloomed into something that's changing lives," she whispered, hugging Nia. "I can't wait to see what you do next." Nia hugged her back, eyes misty. She realized that, in building her brand, she'd inadvertently shaped a platform for others. The very heartbreak that once left her feeling powerless had propelled her to ignite hope on a much larger scale. Months later, Nia found herself back in the neighborhood where she grew up. The streets were worn down, as if neglected by time and city planning. She recalled her younger self, walking these roads with stars in her eyes, dreaming of building something meaningful. Feeling nostalgic, she resolved to give back in a way that extended beyond business mentorship. She purchased an abandoned community center near her old school, determined to breathe new life into it. Renovations began, replacing broken windows, repainting graffiti-laced walls, and cleaning the debris-strewn floors. The project took a toll on her finances, but she pressed on, fueled by the vision of creating a haven for local youth and aspiring entrepreneurs. On opening day, a modest crowd gathered in the refurbished auditorium. Colorful murals celebrated cultural pride, female empowerment, and unity. She cut a ribbon, tears in her eyes, as local kids cheered. The building now boasted a small library, a computer lab, and a multipurpose room for workshops or events. "You're something else, Nia," Esther whispered, voice trembling with emotion. From heartbreak to forming an entire ecosystem of support. Nia stood at the podium, scanning the familiar faces, old